so our podcast is about your journey in music, really how you started playing and, how you got in your first bands and, of course, with Joan, Jett, and the Blackhearts. So, yeah, that's kind of the journey.
And we're gonna focus on this new record, yeah?
Yep. And we'll get all the way to the end with the new record. Or we'll fast forward a bit. We'll get to the record for sure.
You could speed me along because I get wrapped up in a decade. I'll be here all day.
Right on, Ricky. So I did read that you're from New York. Is that true?
From the Bronx.
Tell me about that. How was growing up in the Bronx?
It was great, man. It was kind of a Neil Simon kind of, growing up experience. We lived up the hill from Yankee Stadium, so I'm a lifelong Yankee fan. We could actually sit at our kitchen window and I could see the glow from the stadium, and then we'd listen on a little transistor radio. So, you'd hear like Mickey Mantle hit a home run on the radio, and then sound travels, and then a couple of seconds later you'd hear the roar from the stadium.
The crowd. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So were you a big Yankees fan growing up?
You think?
I would think so.
To this day.
To this day. Still, yeah, that's cool. How cool. Then how'd you get into music?
So, back in those days, like, first of all, I'm lucky I grew up at a time where radio in New York was amazing, right? So AM radio, pre-FM, was like it was like a top 40 station. So you would hear everything from the Stones to Otis Redding to Sinatra.
Wow.
So I learned a lot about a lot of different kinds of music early on. And then I had the luxury of, as everybody did that is around my age, every Sunday night there was a variety show called The Ed Sullivan Show. And the whole family would sit around this big TV. It sounds like the freaking prehistoric age, but it's not quite that long ago.
Yeah,
and
it really wasn't. It's just crazy.
No. And we'd all watch The Ed Sullivan Show. So it was a variety show. So we'd have like comedians, magicians, Broadway shows. And then he had like Elvis, and the Beatles and the Stones and on and on. So in 1965, I believe I was, 9 years old. And I saw the Stones on there and I just was like, whoa, what's all that about? Because emotionally I was a kid that I was quiet, I was shy, I felt different, so when I saw those guys, they looked different, and was just attracted to everything about them. And literally I asked my mom, can I have a guitar? And a couple of weeks later, her boss that she worked for gave her an acoustic to bring home from me. So that was my first acoustic. So I've been playing since I'm 9. And that acoustic is actually in the Rock Hall now, which is pretty cool.
Oh, it is. I was going to ask if you still had it or if you knew where it was. That's cool.
Well, we got trashed by Hurricane Sandy. So the part of the front of the face of the guitar is peeling up. But I gave it to the Rock Hall just like that because I thought it kind of had like a Pete Townsend. I smashed it look to it.
Totally. That's awesome. Wow. What an honor, though, too, to have that in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's really
and then so I found that I could pick up my guitar and I'd hear a song on the radio and I could kind of like fake it. I'm not saying I did it well, but I had that ability to hear things by ear. I mean, I've taken like 2 guitar lessons or something in my life, and I could kind of reproduce it, and there you go. So that made me want to keep going. And I think from that very first moment when I saw like the Stones and the Beatles on TV, I never thought of wanting to be anything else but a musician.
You knew.
And luckily I have. Yeah. And luckily I have, my mom is very supportive right from the get-go. She never tried to talk me out of it or, why don't you get a real job, kid,
Right. That's amazing to have such a supportive mom because, a lot of people, like you just said, are like, yeah, well, you can go to college and that, and then if maybe, that'll
something to fall back on.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But if
I never had anything to fall back on.
Well, maybe that's why you're so successful. You never know.
You never know. And also, that time we're talking about, the 60s. So like I'm a little kid in the 60s. And my time when I was soaking up rock and roll was like the 70s. Like that's
Hmm.
my music, right? But what was great about radio back then, what I was talking about, AM radios, all the great songwriters, like, you know, Cynthia Weil, and you know, all the Brill Building, Carole King, and
Hmm.
Burt Bacharach, all of that stuff was on the radio. And you know, as a kid, I didn't know I was a songwriter then, but you would hear this stuff and these changes and the lyrics, and you know, I guess I was soaking it all up as we went along.
Hmm. And what from you said you were 9 when you started playing guitar, and then you started,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and off the radio trying to, mimic. You said you were able to like listen to it and play. What was
yeah.
the
And
first?
played.
Sorry, go ahead.
What was the first song I played?
No, I was going to ask
Okay,
you
how
what was the first like band or whatever you were able to start or form? Did you form something like in middle school, high
Well,
school?
that was a little late, right? But I could tell you in public school, and I don't
Okay,
remember what grade it was. I came to school with that guitar, and I played "Happy Together" by the Turtles in front of the class.
really?
So I guess I was a performer back then too.
Did you?
You
Was it
know,
for like a talent show, or you just showed up and were like, "I'm going to
no,
play this for
I
you"?
don't know what, I can't remember what it was. I just remember standing there playing "Happy Together" or something like that. Because I was different, dude. I'm in the Bronx, right? And I'm like, I got a little Beatle haircut, and I'm this skinny little kid, and I had braces, and you know, so I was different. And I guess I was drawn to the whole thing, and I love performing. I mean, once you hear people applaud for you, it's like an addiction.
Sure.
But we moved to Queens, New York when I was 14, 13, 14. And
Hmm.
then in school, you start meeting other musicians, and then we form our little garage bands, right?
Hmm.
We played, I went to Flushing High School in Flushing, Queens, and we played in the auditorium. That was probably my first big, show, like a few
Hmm.
hundred people in the auditorium, with the band that I was part of. And we played, man, it was like strictly English cool, like Mott the Hoople, Humble Pie, Slade, Savoy Brown. I mean, we were attracted to that kind of music,
Hmm.
you know. We probably did In the Midnight Hour too, because you had to back then.
So just doing all
you know.
covers at that point.
Yeah, yeah, we were a cover band. It was my first garage band, I guess you would call it, because we were
Hmm.
literally rehearsing in my friend's garage, right?
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the where the term comes from. And that went, so now I'm like 16, 17. Then I start hanging out in the city in Manhattan at
Hmm.
some of these like now legendary rock clubs like Max's Kansas City. So that's where the Dolls started. I mean, I saw Aerosmith there, Iggy Pop. It was like a club, but upstairs they had like a little room, small, wasn't a big room, and bands would play there, and it was like the cool New York rock club. And I was just a kid. I mean, I had Phony Proof, and so I started hanging there, and we started playing that band. I guess did we start writing originals? I don't know. I don't think we played the clubs with doing covers. We probably wrote some like half bad originals, and we played places like Max's Kansas City, and the Mercer Arts Center, which is a famous hotel that had like a rock club. And that's where that was the germ of all of it, and all my music that I soaked up. I mean, the end of the story is I'm a product of all the music that I fell in love with when I was 13, 14, 15, 16.
Hmm.
And in the 70s, I would go to concerts constantly. I can't remember. Everybody knows their first concert. I cannot remember my first concert for some reason. But I would go to this one place we had on 14th Street in Manhattan. It was called the Academy of Music. I was a little young for the Fillmore. I saw like 3 shows at the end of the Fillmore East.
Hmm.
Uh, but the Academy of Music was my place, and we would go see all these British bands when they came, and also like Jay Giles and all these cool bands. Mountain, I love Mountain. And these were all these 70s bands that
Hmm.
kind of is still part of the music that I make, because you could hear it. I wear my influences on my sleeve, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Sure, definitely. And then when did you start? Because the first, from what I'm reading, is like you were in a band that got signed to RCA Records, right? When you were pretty young.
Right. So the next step, and we're moving pretty quick now. The next step is there was a band from Boston that put an ad in a very famous New York paper that I don't think it exists anymore, called the Village Voice.
Okay.
And the Village Voice was a paper that if you were a musician, I mean, it had all the shows where everybody was playing. It had articles and stuff, but for a musician, you'd go in the back, you see who was playing at what club. and in the back it would have ads, band into Humble Pie looking for guitar player, this looking for. I saw their ad. I answered their ad. They moved to New York. I joined the band, and we started playing around some of the clubs in Manhattan. And we were an original band. I would say we were kind of like a pop, heavy pop rock band, maybe a little like the Raspberries, that kind of thing. There were three lead singers, which I was one of them, and we were called Susan. We were called Susan. I don't have a clue why we were called Susan. It was their name. I forget the story. I don't think there was a definitive story, but Carol, my wife, Carol Kay, she was friends with Tommy Mottola, who wound up being the president of Sony Music and this and that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
She invited him down to see us rehearse, and he signed us to a production deal. He was a manager back then. So we did part of the production deal was RCA. We did a record, and we went on tour. It was my first tour. We toured opening for Graham Parker and the Rumor.
Wow.
And it was actually their Squeezing Out the Sparks tour, which is like my favorite Graham Parker record. And then we went straight across the country with them, and that was my first rock and roll tour.
Wow. Tell me about that tour. Was it nerve-wracking? Was it scary? Like, were you just excited?
Well, it felt natural to me. I mean, it was exciting as hell. Mm-hmm. I watched Graham Parker every night because he had a great guitar player named Brinsley Schwartz that I was, he taught me how to, he didn't teach me, but his style was all like he would play to the song. Instead of just riffing, he was always playing melody lines and stuff. And I thought that was really cool. Mm-hmm. I remember to me, one of the highlights was that we were staying in LA at a place called the Tropicana, a very famous rock hotel. I'm not even going to say it was a motel. It was in our hotel. A place where legends are made, right? And I was sitting by the pool, and on day off or whatever it was. And I looked to my left, and Marianne Faithfull is like 3 chairs away, sitting there reading.
Whoa. Oh my God.
And I'm like, and then Tom Waits, who stayed in a bungalow in the back, came walking out and walked right past me in a black suit with his hat and stuff. And I just went, yeah, baby, I've arrived.
You're totally right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
crazy.
we came back we played across the country. We ended at the Academy of Music, which I mentioned before, which was cool. So I got to play the place I used to go to concerts. And then the band basically broke up.
Oh, really?
I mean, the other guitar player, Tom left the band to start his own band. And then we tried to keep it together. It, fell apart little by little. We had other little versions of it. And then I was kind of hanging around New York. I was hanging out with Steve Marriott from Humble Pie. He became a friend of mine. That's cool. Or I became a friend of his. And I was writing with John Waite also. He had just left the Babies. He moved from England, and somebody thought we'd be good together. So we started hanging out and writing a little bit. And then Carol worked at a famous management company called Lieber Krebs, right? And Joan, her first record, she didn't even have like an office or anything. She was selling them with her manager out of the back of the car, really.
Oh my gosh.
So they gave her a room, to do business in this thing. And I just got a call from Carol one day and say, hey, would you be interested in jamming with this girl, Joan Jett? And I'm like, and I actually saw the Runaways play at CBGB's.
Oh, wow.
Years before. And I said, yeah, sure. Oh, you know what? In between Susan and that, I did do a tour with G.E. Smith for his record. That was the second tour.
Just as a touring musician?
Yeah, Tommy Mottola managed Hall & Oates. Mm-hmm. G.E. Smith was in Hall & Oates. G.E. left Hall & Oates, did his own record, and we knew each other from that management company. He said, I got a record. Would you like to be the second guitar player? I'm like, yeah. We toured. So we did that tour. That's my second tour. We opened for Squeeze. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember sitting in a motel with all of us sitting around in chairs singing Beatles songs. So that was pretty cool.
With the guys in Squeeze?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So that was that. So then I go down, I jam with Joan. We get along great. I joined the band. Part of the I Love Rock and Roll record was started already. We went back in. We wound up doing the whole thing again with a couple of tracks remained from Eric Gamble, the previous guitar player. Was a great guy, great producer too. And then we did the I Love Rock and Roll record, and then we hit the road playing clubs in like a Winnebago. I Love Rock and Roll, literally. Then the record comes out, and as we're on the road, it starts climbing the charts. you know. And now we don't know what's going on because we're out there playing clubs, right?
Right. Was it
Records
like on
climbing.
the radio or something? Did it hit the radio?
Oh
Or
yeah,
something?
man. Oh
Okay.
yeah. I love rock and roll was everywhere.
Okay.
And so the gigs got bigger. You
Uh-huh.
know, the Winnebago went bye-bye. We got a real tour bus. You know, and then we got a second tour bus for the crew. You know, that's how it works, right?
Yeah.
Spinal Tap. Uh, and we started playing these big places, and then we started like opening for like, oh my God, you know, Deep Purple, ZZ Top, Aerosmith, The Who. We'd go on these package things with like Journey, REO, Speedwagon. You know, we're talking about the early '80s, right?
Right. Right.
Loverboy. I'm going to forget somebody good. Just everybody that was around them. We played with everybody. Oh, we opened for Queen.
Wow.
In front of like 70,000 people in England. You know, so that was amazing, right? So I
Yeah.
played with Joan. I wound up co-writing about 13 songs while I was in that band with Joan.
Uh-huh.
I left the band to pursue other stuff, you know. So I played with her from '81 to '91. I came back
You're
at
on
the
the
end of the
biggest
'90s to
records,
do.
though. Yeah, I mean, you're on the records that everyone knows.
Yeah, well, I was lucky, man. It's good timing is everything.
Right.
So I played with her from '81 to '91, and then I came back to do a VH1 special with her. I think it was '98, if I'm not wrong, if I'm correct. And just, you know, it was out in Telluride, Colorado. So we did that. But I left. I got a publishing deal. I stayed home. I was writing songs. I was trying to put together some bands. You know, I was trying to find out, like, what do I sound like?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it always, you know, the first couple of bands, it was like, you know, it was like tag job Rolling Stones. Like I wasn't finding who I was yet.
Mm-hmm.
Songwriting, yeah, I could write songs. I mean, I got my first songwriting cover in the late '70s by a band called Photo Maker,
Okay.
which was a couple of members of the Rascals and a couple of members of the Raspberries, strangely enough.
Yeah.
So that was my first songwriter. So I love
Wow.
that. I love getting, you know, writing and somebody says, wow, I like that. Let me put that on my record. So I
Uh-huh.
got a publishing deal with Sony. Actually there was one, Windswept Pacific was the first publishing deal. But, you know, I did that for a couple of years and I kept trying to put together bands. It just, you know, it was just, I couldn't find out who I was yet. But
Was the reason
right after,
did you leave the Blackhearts for was it to pursue solo music?
Well, it's to just do other stuff. I was in the band for 10
Yeah.
years. Like I was burnt out from touring, you know. I got clean in '87. I left in '91. So it was just time to do other stuff.
Sure.
I mean, I love Joan and the Blackhearts.
Right.
It's just time to move on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got a call from a friend of mine who was producing a Roger Daltrey record after I left the band, the Blackhearts. And he said, man, you'd be great to be on this record. So he said, me and Roger are going to jam at this little club in the West Village, right? So come down there and we'll play. So there's pictures of it. Me, Roger, and Gerard McMahon, his name was, great songwriter. Had a lot of songs in movies and TV. We jammed. So I wound up doing the Roger Daltrey record called Rocks in the Head.
That's crazy.
Co-writing a couple of songs, you know. So that record, we didn't really do a tour. We did a radio tour. We recorded half the record here in New York, half the record at Abbey Road, which was a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
That was a trip.
Was that the first time you had ever been there?
To Abbey Road?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was the first time. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how cool!
I mean, I was in England plenty of times with Joan, but I was never at Abbey Road. And of course, I took the picture crossing the street like every moron does, right?
You have to, right?
Yeah.
That's like proof that you were there.
I think unfortunately I was walking across the street the wrong direction, so it's pretty funny. Typical me.
That's awesome, actually.
So we did a radio tour. We did some TV shows. Me and Roger and Gerard and a little band. We did like Letterman. What did we do? We did Regis and Kathy Lee. We did what's his name? Dennis Miller in L.A. And we did some radio stuff. And then that was over. And then I got a call from Ian Hunter from Mott the Hoople, and he says, I'm going to tour Scandinavia and England. Would you like to be the guitar player? And I was like, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Mott the Hoople is like one of my favorite bands. So I went out and I did that,
Wow.
and then that lasted, it was a couple of months. And then I came back, and then I was like, I want to put together my own band. So a lot of stuff in between, a lot of songwriting, a lot of this and that. My first solo record was in 2013. It was called Lifer.
Mm-hmm.
That was a straight ahead rock and roll record. You know, it's all the stuff that I'm talking about that I grew up on. It's just
Right.
originals. You know, it's like Sponge and here's who I sound like. And then I started doing these recovery records. My first one was in 2017. You know, and so now we're pretty much up to the present.
Up to the present, yeah. So was Clean Getaway the very first recovery record you put out, or was that first album you did solo?
That was the first. Well, the briefly the story on that is I started to get asked to do recovery like shows, like basically they were in Florida. My friend is in long-term recovery. He says, hey, we're going to do this outside thing. There's going to be like stands. There's going to be information if people are struggling. They're going to sell like recovery jewelry, and we'll just come up and, you know, play some songs with me. I said, yeah, cool. So we did some songs. I didn't have one recovery song yet. And I had people came over to me afterward and said, hey man, I grew up on your music. And I've been in recovery since '87. In fact, this month I'm celebrating 33 years.
Wow.
Like
Congratulations.
Who knew?
That's epic.
Yeah. So
I got 3 years, but
God bless.
I only need 30 more to be at where you are.
You have to have 3 to get to 33, by the way.
That's true.
The way it works.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. So so people were coming over to me after that show and they said, man, I grew up on your music, you know, I'm struggling, or I'm in recovery, or my cousin unfortunately died from opioids, or this one, you know, and a light went over my head and I said, wow, that's interesting. I never even thought, you know, the connection of music and recovery. So me and my friend that I was talking about, Richie Supa, who I know like 40 years, another famous, great songwriter, we wrote a song called Broken is a Place. And we put that, I came back to New York, I did a quick demo and I threw it online, and I started getting like messages from people around the world going, you told my story. Again, the light went over my head. I said, well, that's interesting. Maybe I should write some more of these songs.
Yeah.
When I had about 6 or 7 of them, I cold called somebody that I knew from Florida from doing those shows, who had a treatment facility. And I said, what if I came in with my guitar and I did like a music group, a recovery music group? Yeah, sure. So they had one up in Jersey, another treatment facility. So I started doing that there. And the reaction from everybody was so overwhelming that I just said, okay, here's my third act. This is what I need to do. People were coming over to me afterwards, after the group, saying, you made me cry. You told it like it is. This is my story. Where could I get this music? I kept hearing, where could I get this music? So after about a year of where can I get this music, I said, I got to do a record. Hence Clean Getaway.
Oh, wow. That's awesome that you started this, because I mean, 90% of the music out there is about, not 90%, but a lot of it is about, glamorizing and glorifying the drinking and partying and all that stuff. So to have the opposite side of the coin, I think that's really cool.
Well, there are people, I mean, there's tons of songs on rock and roll records that are about recovery, but it's one song here, one song there.
Right.
And there's recovery records as well, but it's usually it's acoustic or it's Christian rock or something. I just wanted to make sure, like my rule was this record has got to be greasy, it's got to be rock and roll, and it's got to have the message that I'm trying to put across, which is, hopefully somebody will hear something they may need to hear. So the reaction from Clean Getaway was the same. It was overwhelming from around the world. I listened to High Wire last night. I wanted to use, but I listened to that and I said, no, I'm going to stay home tonight. And I was like, wow, I'm really blessed that I got this. I stumbled into this thing and it seems to be helping people. So this is what I'm doing for right now. And so Clean Getaway went from 16, 17, that's how old I am, from 2017 to, 2000, I don't know, you know how long a record lasts, right?
Yeah.
Then what happens as a songwriter is once I finish that first record, I don't even look at my guitar for a little bit. Like, it's like, no.
Oh, okay.
And then I pick it up. I start. Here's another one. Here's another song. And then all of a sudden, I've got 15 songs for another recovery record, and that's where Sobering Times came from, the new
Wow.
one.
Yeah, the new one.
And
Okay.
I just finished it in March before the lockdown. In fact, I had to do some like post tweaking and mixing by phone because the studio I work at with Bob Stander is out in it's called Parcheesi Studios out in Long Island. So I
Uh-huh.
couldn't go out there anymore, right? So we were doing it on by the phone, like just a couple of little fixes, mixes, tweaks, you know. We even finished.
Wow.
I went back and I listened to some of the extra tracks, and I said, you know what? Let's put this one on there. And it's the Merle. I did one cover. I actually did two covers, but I'm only going to put one on there. I did "Reach Out" by the Four Tops, which I
Hmm.
thought was a great song for recovery.
Yeah, definitely.
And but there was a commercial in New York of a really like bad version of it for, I don't know, car commercial or something. And I went, okay, let's not put that on the record now. You know,
Yeah.
but my version is like rocking. You know,
Hmm.
but I said, we'll wait a few months till the commercial goes away. So I covered "The Bottle Let Me Down" by Merle Haggard, which I know has been covered by a lot of people, but I did it kind of, you know, the Bird way, you know, all sloppy. And so we did that, but we didn't finish. We didn't finish it. This was after the fact, and it was lockdown, and I was listening to tracks. I said, but I listened to my rough vocal, and I said, that ain't bad, that rough vocal. You know, the one you do when you're recording that so people know what to play to.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Just like the scratch track.
Scratch track, yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, let's keep that. So Bob, who plays bass on the record, uh, played, you know, after the fact. Tommy Price had from the Blackhearts, you know, my old bandmate, played
Yeah.
drums on it.
Oh, cool.
You know, when we did the original track, I had Jeff Kazee, who's plays keyboards on my record. He plays with Southside Johnny. I sent it to him. He played keyboards on it. Um, and um, and Jeff sang the backgrounds. That's right. And there were a couple of little. I didn't really do a lead guitar track. I didn't get up to that. There was like a really good rhythm track that I did, and with like
Hmm.
the solo came, and it was like one of those cool Ronnie Wood solos where it's not really lead, it's kind of rhythmy,
Oh,
like a
right,
key.
right.
So I said, that's the solo, and I said, Bob's a great guitar player. I said, play some lead guitar throughout the song, and that's how we finished that, you know. And then
Wow.
my daughter Frankie, I couldn't get to, a photo shoot. My daughter takes great photos. I don't know if you saw. Did you see the album cover yet?
Yeah, I have. I saw it in an
Okay.
email. Yeah, I looked
My
through that.
my daughter took that photo, Frankie
Wow.
Byrd, and the one on the back cover. And so where did the title come from? Dude, I was agonizing for weeks. I had a list of like 70 titles,
Uh-huh.
and they either sucked or they were already used. You know, you find this great title, then you Google it, and there's like 20 albums with that
Right.
title.
Oh, right. Of course. I'm sure that's the
And
same with band names nowadays too. If you're trying to
oh, of
start a
course.
band.
And then I had all these kind of like recovery, like only
Terms.
people in
Yeah.
recovery would know what the
Yeah.
terms were. You know, like I had 449. I was going to call it 449. What is that? It's in the AA Big Book. There's page 49 is about acceptance.
Uh-huh.
And I said, let's just call it 449. You know, you get all excited about something and you go, well, nobody's going to know what it is.
All right.
um, so I kept pointing to the Van Halen record. What is it, 5051 or whatever it was?
Mm-hmm.
5150.
5150.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's like the psych ward call
Yeah, I
too,
know, I
right?
know. But it was a number, so it was all I could relate to.
Sure.
So then I'm on the phone with somebody and I'm saying, we're talking about what's going on in the world right now. And I went, yeah, dude, these are sobering times. And I went, huh, there's my title.
There it is.
I mean, it has to do with everything. You know, it's like, when do you decide to change your life and get into recovery, hopefully? Well, sobering times really lead you into that. That's your bottom, right? You know what
Right,
I mean?
right.
When times get that sobering and you have the choice of either dying or changing. So I said, yeah, this is a good title. And
Hmm.
now that I put it out, everybody's like, oh man, great title.
Yeah, it is a great title. And with this new record, or even with your prior records, were you like, when you play the songs, were you doing like tours of with like events that all around recovery, or were you playing shows, or how does that work?
Good question. Well, I do. Well, my main thing that I love to do, this is what I miss the most. Yeah, I miss getting up and playing some scrappy rock and roll with a band, but
Hmm.
the thing I miss the most is for the last 5 years or so, 6, 7 years, I've been going around the country doing recovery music groups at treatment facilities, detention centers, or, we're at schools. And that's what I miss doing right now. And what I usually do is I bring a stack of, the Clean Getaway record, because this one just is, this is just starting.
Yeah, this one hasn't
And
even came out, right? It comes out in a couple of
no,
weeks
no,
or next
yeah,
Friday.
yeah, on my anniversary. So
Oh, really?
when I
Two
do
days
these,
after my birthday.
excellent. When I would go to treatment facilities, I'd bring a stack of Clean Getaway records, and I would give them to the clinical director, and I'd say, look, when the clients complete treatment, let them take the music home with them. And I would tell them that. I gave away maybe 2,500 of the Clean Getaway record throughout, the year or whatever it
Wow.
was.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do the same thing. Hopefully we get back to normal and I can start traveling again and do that. And I've done a couple of recovery events right here where you're looking at me with my guitar,
Oh, cool.
with my purple Prince backdrop right here, which I got on Amazon. I got on Amazon. Uh, so that's what I do most of. And the other thing I do most of, because I don't really have a band. I mean, I would love to put a band together for this Sobering Times record, but we'll
Mhm.
see. I don't even know where the world's going, right?
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
I could do anything with my acoustic by myself, so that's
Uh-huh.
good. I do a lot of events because of my history in the rock world, and being in the rock hall and all that good stuff. Like, I get asked to be in these like all-star bands that do these big events, charity events, where it's like me, Liberty DeVito from Billy Joel's band, like Paul Schaefer sometimes, Will
Hmm.
Lee, Jeff Carlisi from 38 Special, Rob Arthur from Frampton's band. There's like a whole bunch of us guys.
It's
We do all these
crazy.
events, and we back up people like Mavis Staples, Sam Moore from Sam and Dave. Like, we backed up Smokey Robinson at an event.
Jeez.
Who's got it better than me?
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
I have like the best of all worlds.
Yeah, I know. Wow, that's so cool. And well, you talked about doing like in front of your purple background there. Were you like acoustic shows like streaming right now?
When this first started in March, I did. All my friends are doing streaming stuff on Facebook and Instagram and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just a lazy bastard. Um, so I did like two things live from here.
Uh-huh.
I did a couple of events, regular events, where I would have been in a hall, like a recovery organization, and I was their keynote speaker, and I play. So it would have been in like a hall in Atlantic City or something.
Mhm.
But I did it from here.
Oh, wow.
So I did
Yeah.
I did two of those, and I did two Facebook things where I just did a song each. When I was recording, I would do a live thing from the studio out in Long Island, and I would just say, "Hey, man, take a listen to this. This is, I'm just finishing up." God bless my friends that are doing like an hour, at
Yeah.
home. I just, I don't know. I don't know if it's I'm lazy, I'm scared. I just the fact that I'm sitting here in my basement and I can't hear any reaction. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of people I've heard is the no reaction, and it's funny because earlier you said it's addicting, kind of hearing the cheer. Like after you played the turtle song, you had the cheer, and you're like in that kind of was what
Yeah,
kind of got
and I'm
you
a ham,
motivated,
and
and now you're
I'm a
not
bit of
getting
a
any
ham.
cheer. Bit of a ham.
No, it's like, you watch late night TV like Stephen Colbert, and he's doing jokes in front of nobody.
Right, I
So,
know it's so bizarre.
there's no laugh. So it must be really difficult for comedians.
Yeah,
But,
I know. Like, am I
we'll
being
see.
funny?
This release may lead to me doing more, stuff from the basement, or maybe I know people are starting to do some live. I was asked to do something this summer out in Long Island, like a recovery event. It was outside. It was, I don't know, it was a drive-in concert,
Mhm.
as they call them now. I just wasn't ready to be around people. I'm really
Sure.
waiting to see what happens. But meanwhile,
Smart.
right now this is a complete do-it-yourself, record. Like recorded the record. Right now, people are pre-ordering. It comes out on September 25th. And so what do I do at night is, I'm watching the Yankees with one eye, and I'm signing CDs and packing them up, and I bring them to the post office,
Oh,
which
cool.
I love. which I love the grassroots approach, hands-on approach. It's really cool because I know exactly what's going on. I'm doing a lot of interviews like this, and this is just starting. You're like my third interview.
Oh, wow.
So this is just starting, and that's what my next month is going to be, or and I literally haven't picked up my guitar in oh my God, I think in 3 weeks. It's just sitting there by the bed looking at me.
It's like, hey, you're gonna play with me?
My Martin. Like I've started like 3 songs and I went, nah, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
But so right now I'm in this mode, and I just need people to if you're in recovery, you're gonna love this music. You're gonna love the music. You're gonna love the message. If you have somebody that needs to hear the message, maybe get them a copy of this. If you support the recovery lifestyle, you're gonna love this record. If you're just a rock and roll fan and you have nothing to do with recovery, you're gonna love this record. I tried to cover all the bases.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna start getting some airplay soon. I heard rumor, and
Cool.
People, if they can go to rickybyrd.com, there's a bunch of different packages. Some of them are going to disappear once the record actually is released. So it's just rickybyrd.com, and you'll be helping me help other people. I mean, the more I can sell, the more I can afford to manufacture that I can give away. Like, so what I'm thinking of doing is some of the places that I was going to on a regular basis, the treatment facilities, they can't really, they can't have me in there yet because they're not letting anybody in that doesn't work there.
Sure.
And they don't have the ability to have like a giant screen where I could do it from home and I could play I mean, great if they did, where I could do this, but in front of 70, people sitting in a room, in treatment. But what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start sending a stack of the records to the treatment facilities I go to and say, just, tell them Uncle Ricky will be back someday. And just tell them to take the recovery message home with them. And let me tell you, those people, I often hear from the people that left treatment and say, man, I saw you with so-and-so, I was ready to leave. Your recovery music group made me want to stay, and I got your record and I listened to it all the time, and I got 8 months sober, and I'm like, yay, that's what I
awesome.
like.
Yeah.
Well,
I know right now it's even more, I'm sure it's harder for people, I'm sure, in recovery right now because of the fact that you can't go to meetings and stuff. It's like all online. How do you feel about like the online, like AA stuff?
Well, I'm a big supporter of community support groups. Let's leave it there.
Okay.
So that's how I have 33 years, because I love going to community support groups. And I love the 12 steps. Anything else beyond that, I don't talk about in public.
Okay.
But I love Zoom meetings. I mean, you got to keep gratitude in the attitude, man. Like, where would we be?
Yeah.
It's kept me sane. I mean, now that I've started doing interviews, like I've been going to a noon men's meeting since March, where up until I started doing this record, I was pretty much going, like, I might have missed 5 days since March.
Wow.
And I got and it's out of Florida, and I have a whole bunch of friends, new friends, and it's kept me going, man. It's like it's the fuel I need in the morning to get me through the freaking news.
Yeah, right.
And then when we could go, I know there are some live meetings out there, but I'm not ready to sit in a room with a bunch of people.
Right. Yeah.
So this is fine to me. And listen, dude, I have 33 years of tools that I've picked up by being in recovery that it's up to me. If I want to be miserable and scared for the day, then I just ignore the tools. If I want to get through the day with a smile on my face, I read from the books, whatever the things I do on a daily basis. I talk to, I call a lot of people that are in recovery throughout the day, and we just chat. It doesn't have to be about recovery. It's just the fact that you're communicating. Just remember, addiction thrives on isolation.
Yeah,
so
I
remember
know.
that.
And especially right now, it's even more, scary because.
Yeah. So you put together. That's the whole point. You put together a sober network, and in times like these, you use your sober network. And right. I'm, considering all that's going on in this world, I'm fine. I mean, listen, I haven't had, I lost all my dates for the summer, like, all my events for the summer.
Yeah.
You know, all the financial aspects of that, and the bills still come in, you know. But do I panic? No, it's going to be okay. It's all going to be okay.
I like that. Thank you so much, Ricky, for talking with me today. I really, really appreciate your time. I can't wait to hear
Pleasure.
this new record.
The,
Yeah.
the key is for everybody out there is to, like, you know, there's a song on my new record called Together, right? A
Mhm.
giant, like, if you listen to the record, the luxury I have of this, this is like a concept record. So is Clean Getaway. Is it a solo record? Yeah, I guess so. But it's a concept record. So I have the luxury of doing like an acoustic song. You know, here's a sloppy rock and roll song. Here's a beautiful, you know, this. Here's a this. I don't have to stick to one style. It's all Ricky for sure. It's all the stuff I
Mhm.
grew up on. But it's like, you know, it's like when I was a kid listening to a Beatle record, you go, wow, that's weird. That sounds like, you know, music hall. What is it? You know, like a Paul McCartney tune, you know.
Right,
There's a
right.
song I'm playing Mando guitar, the third song in, you know. But there's a song called Together that I think I'm the first song I'm gonna get airplay on. It's a big, like, it's from my musically, it's probably me growing up on T-Rex and Slade, you know, old, you know, English glitter, big bombastic drums and big crunchy guitars, and the stuff I did with Joan, right? So the message is, we're in this together. No need to go it
Mhm.
alone. I wrote this 2 years ago, right? And I'm like, wow, what a perfect song for now. But it's about recovery.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to start to get airplay soon on that. Is what I've heard. So that's pretty cool. And
That's very cool.
there's all kinds of there's a solution in every song. Like, I don't leave you hanging. There's always a solution. Some of the songs talk hardcore about specific stuff, you know, drugs and alcohol, but there's always a solution, you
Mhm.
know, because there is a solution.
Yeah, there really is. And wow, thank you so much, Ricky, again, yeah, for doing this. I do have
Thanks,
one more
brother.
question for you. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Read the fine print. I don't know. It's a completely different music world that I uh, grew up in. I mean, even this record, where we are the record company. I have a great publicist, which is my wife, so that's great. I'm about to sign a distribution deal, which is great. But I don't have like a record label like in the old days, as far as
Mhm.
touring and this and that. So the advice is, make sure you're doing this for the right reasons, which is because you love music and you don't want to do anything else. Uh, do not have high expectations, because that leads to resentments. That's also a recovery thing. You know, in other words, just do it because it's in your soul, and you know, whatever happens, happens. You got to do it for the love of picking up whatever instrument, or you like to see the smiles on people's faces in the crowd, or, you know what I mean. My job is to make, as a songwriter, is to make people laugh, cry, or think. You know, anything above that is none of my business. You know, you know, I just try to put stuff out there, and it's really important to remember. And it's funny, all my stuff comes from recovery at this point. Is like, I'm not in the results business, you know, I'm in like the action business. So like, I do a record, I put a lot of work into it. My job is to make a great record, and I send it out into the world, and what happens with it, whatever reaction it gets, I can't be affected by that personally. Like, I know that I did a really good job. So as somebody coming up in the business, you got to start like toughening your skin for that, because this is a business filled with rejection, quite frankly. And there's millions of people that are musicians now. Like, when I was a kid, like, I knew two other guitar players, right? Everybody's got a home studio. Everybody's a songwriter. Everybody's, you know, so like there's even on Facebook, like, here's a song I wrote. Here's a song I wrote. So the competition is wild. So the key is to just do it because you love to do it, and just, you know, practice. Always important to know the history of songwriting and music. You know, since it's a songwriter thing we're doing right now.
Mhm.
Um, go listen to John Prine. Go listen to Steve Earle. Go listen to Lucinda Williams. Go listen to the Brill Building songwriters. You know, Cynthia Weil, Barry Mann, Carole King. Learn how to learn the craft of songwriting. You know, listen to Sam Cooke, who wrote all those wonderful songs. Who A Change Is Gonna Come. Come on, man. You know, listen to Leonard Cohen. Listen to the Beatles, listen to, whatever your music is, but go look at the history. Go back to the early days. Like I said, when we started this, I grew up in a family that listened to a lot of music. So I got to listen to Sinatra, listen to like Sammy Cahn, like the song Sammy Cahn wrote, and Jimmy Webb, and Jimmy Van Heusen, all those guys that wrote in the 40s and the 50s, all these songs that still are around today, classic songs. Listen to the craft. Yeah, some of them are hokey, but that was the time, right? Listen to the craft of songwriting, lyrics, music, how to scan your lyrics so they fit properly, and listen to Bob Dylan, who breaks all the rules.
I love that.
So that's my advice. Do your homework, man.
Bring me that word.